What can you do if someone has been ordered to pay you child support, but they refuse to pay? Well, first of all, my name is Robert Larson. I'm the owner of the Larson Law Office in Mesa, Arizona, and I focus mostly on family law and estate planning, and I've been doing it for over 20 years now. And so I have quite a bit of experience with situations where someone is not paying child support. So the main thing you can do is you can let the court know and ask the court for help, because really the court doesn't know what's going on unless you let them know. You have to file something and tell them that you're not receiving your child support and that you want some help. Otherwise, the court's going to stay out of it because they don't really know. So you file a petition and you ask for two things. You ask for enforcement of child support and contempt of court. And so you do these things together, and they're very similar, but they are slightly different. Enforcement is just a matter of asking the court for help in getting the payments to be made and having them made consistently. And you also want help with any past payments that you were supposed to get that you didn't get. So that would be the arrears. So enforcement is a matter of getting the court's help to get the payments that are owed to you, but it's not necessarily about blame. Very often the other party is to blame, like they've refused to make payments for whatever reasons, but sometimes it's just because they didn't have the money or they didn't know what to do or whatever it is. So you can ask for enforcement at any time, and the court has to give that to you. Contempt of court is a little bit different. It goes beyond enforcement. In this situation, there is some blame. You have to prove that somebody knew about the court order. So in other words, they knew they were supposed to pay you child support and they refused to pay it, and they had the ability to pay it. So in other words, they knew they were supposed to pay you. They could have paid you either all of the support or at least some of it, and they just chose not to. So that's contempt of court. And the difference is when it's contempt of court, meaning it's willful and deliberate and intentional, then the courts will often do more when it comes to sanctions. So sanctions are essentially consequences or even punishments, and the court has a laundry list of things that they can do to get people to start making payments. And so there's a certain number of things that they'll do when it's enforcement only, but they can go a little bit beyond that when it's considered contempt of court. So what are the things they can do? First of all, they can bring you into court and figure out how much you owe and reduce that to a judgment. When I say reduce it to a judgment, that means you would have a judgment that can be collected in any way that a judgment can legally be collected. So you could garnish wages, you could put liens on property and things like that. So it gives you some options. But also, once you have a judgment, then the court is also going to create what's called an arrears payment. So let's say the other person is supposed to pay you $600 per month, and let's say they owe you $10,000 for arrears. A judge might say, okay, to the person who owes money, you're going to keep paying the $600 per month, but now you're going to pay an extra $200 per month to catch up on the arrears, or maybe $300 or $400 or $500, whatever that number is. They'll add an extra payment, so now they're making two payments instead of one. And another thing they can do is they can do what's called a purge payment. And again, this is only for contempt of court. So if you remember earlier, I said that there were some extra sanctions or consequences that a court can give you if they find that it's been contempt of court, and one of those is a purge payment. So if it's just enforcement only, so in other words, the person wasn't necessarily to blame, then they wouldn't be able to do this. But if someone is in contempt of court, then they can purge, or in other words, get rid of that contempt by making a lump sum purge payment. And in the situation that I gave earlier, where somebody owed $10,000 arrears, a typical purge payment might be something like $1,000 or maybe a couple $1,000, depending on their financial circumstances. Judges have a lot of leeway when it comes to that. So a typical situation, like I described, would be the judge would say, okay, well, you're going to have to keep making the $600 monthly payment, plus you're going to pay $200 a month on the arrears, plus I'm going to order that you pay a purge payment of $1,000 within 24 hours, or if it's morning, they might even say by 5 p.m. today, and you do that to avoid further consequences. So a purge payment is something that they have to pay within a very short time, and it's on top of their other monthly payments. So those are some of the common things you can do. One of the things they can do that doesn't seem that harsh at first, but actually is extremely effective, is the courts can order the other person to come back to court on a regular basis for up to a year. So they may have to come to court every month or every 3 months and prove to the judge basically that they're current. So Again, it doesn't sound like that harsh of a consequence, but if you're the one who has to pay child support and you have to interfere or interrupt your work or whatever else you have scheduled to go to court every 2 or 3 months and show receipts to the judge to show that you're current, that you made the payments, not only the payments that were required during that period of time, but that you made them each month when they were due. And if you have to show the judge receipts like that for like a year, where you have to come back to court every 2 or 3 months, that can get to be a real hassle, and it's also really effective. And the reason why all these things are effective, so for example, the purge payment, the coming back to court every 2 or 3 months and showing that you're current, the way that these are effective is the judge can threaten someone with jail. So they don't usually start out with that. They usually start out with the other things that I've been talking to you about, like the purge payments, the regularly scheduled hearings, the arrears payments, the judgments, things like that. Those are some of the things they can do, but they're not. If someone's just refusing to pay child support and they get these other orders to make an arrears payment and they come back to court and prove that they're current every couple months and so on, what's to stop them from just refusing to do those things? Well, it's jail. Because if you don't do those things, the judge is going to have the sheriff's deputies who work at the courthouse put you in handcuffs, and they're going to haul you off to jail. So that's what makes those things effective. And eventually, if you have these hearings that come up every few months and you're consistently not being current, then they will take you to jail anyway. And basically they'll say, okay, you have to pay a certain amount of money to get out of jail. So there are things that can be done. They don't just start off with jail right away, but they start off with kind of the lower level things and work their way up to it. And they will put people in jail if they don't make their payments. And I've seen people be hauled away by the deputies, and they've slapped the handcuffs on them and take them out of the courtroom. And these are people who typically have never been to jail or never been arrested or anything like that, and they don't think it's going to happen. And it can happen, though. I've seen it, and the fear that you see in these people's eyes when they realize they're headed to the jail, it's a sight to behold. It's pretty interesting. And so if you're the one who's paying child support, you obviously never want to get to that position. But anyway, the bottom line is there are things you can do. A judge can also order the person to pay for your legal fees and court costs. So it's not fair that you have to pay money to go back to court to get somebody to do something they've already been ordered to do. So you would have in that situation, you would have a very good argument that they should have to pay for your filing fees and process server fees and your attorney fees and things like that. So that's another thing that can be something that can be used to discourage people from not paying child support. So the bottom line is there are a lot of things that can be done, but none of them happen unless you start the process. You have to file that petition. You have to let the court know that you want help. And once you let them know, there are things you can do. Obviously, the things that the court can do. I didn't list everything they can do, but those are some of the main ways that they can get people to start making payments. Anyway, if you ever have any questions, feel free to give me a call. If you find this content helpful, don't forget to like the video and follow for more. Thanks.